So, okay. So, we're going to talk a little bit about pricing conversations with sellers, because that's always one of people's favorite things to have. And I want to preface it a little bit by saying that it is a really touchy conversation sometimes, depending on the seller, because you're talking not just about a financial investment, but also someone's home. And so you want to be direct, you want to be professional, you want to be informative, but you also want to be empathetic and really understand where the seller is coming from when you're having these conversations. So you want to be the expert, and you definitely need to follow the market and all of the recent overall trends. So if you're talking to a seller in Long Beach, or you're talking to a seller in San Pedro, or wherever it is, really know how have price trends changed? How many listings have come on the market in the last 30 days? How many have gone under contract? Because you need to be conversant in that. You need to know the comparable sales for their home, and have a really, really good sense of what the value might be before you actually engage in a conversation with the seller about pricing. So there's several key moments that I want to touch on in terms of when you'll be having conversations about pricing with potential sellers or with sellers. One is before the appointment. So before you ever actually go to meet with them. The second one is at an appointment. So you're at their house and you're talking about pricing for the home. And then if there's any delay between the time when you actually sign a listing agreement and the time when the house is going to go active in the multiple listing service, you'll need to have another pricing conversation. So we have a listing that just went active this week, and for various reasons, health reasons, home reasons, job reasons, etc., it was months between when we actually signed paperwork and when she put it in the MLS. And so we had to have a whole nother pricing conversation. And then what if it doesn't sell right away? Well, then you need to have follow-up pricing conversations, maybe more than one, depending on the seller and the activity and how far off you are. So before you ever go on the appointment, ask the seller, what price are you hoping to sell for? So there's lots of key kinds of pre-qualifying questions you want to ask before an appointment. And the more of those you ask, the better advantage you'll have at the appointment. So some of the other ones are going to be, are you interviewing other real estate agents? Where are you moving? When do you plan to be there? And then you just kind of work in, great, and what price are you hoping to sell the home for? And sometimes people will say, and this is a really common answer, oh, we want you to tell us what you think. Like they don't want to tell you. Sometimes they'll tell you, oh gosh, yeah, we're hoping to get about, $950. Okay, great. Now you know what their expectation is. But sometimes they want to kind of dodge the topic. And if they don't want to tell you that, sometimes I'll say, that's great. And I'm actually going to review in great detail pricing when I come out. But it's always helpful for me to know if the recommendation I have is going to excite you or disappoint you. Sometimes at that point, they'll kind of laugh and then they'll give you a number. Sometimes they won't. So then what you might say is, terrific. One of the things I'm going to do when I come out is I'm going to put together an estimated net sheet So you can see what your bottom line might be if we move forward and list your home. Approximately how much do you owe on the home? Usually they know that, or they'll give you some kind of rough idea. Terrific. And how much are you hoping to net? Well, if they tell you what they owe and they tell you what they're hoping to net, you now have, because it's a simple math calculation, how much they're hoping to sell it for. And they may not even realize that they've given you that information. So that's a quick tip. If they don't want to give you any information at all, though, about pricing expectations, try and get as many, and even if they do, try and get as many details about the home as you can ahead of time. So have there been any upgrades or updates that you feel would add to the value? Are there any conditions or issues that you think might detract from the value? That way, when you're looking at your comparable sales before you've actually viewed the home, you'll have a little bit better sense of pricing. The other thing that you want to know before you ever go into the appointment is, what do the online estimates say the home is worth? So look at what Redfin says, what Zillow says, because they probably have looked. And it's very likely that their expectation is based on those online estimates. So you should know what they are. If the recommendation you come up with is above that, then they're probably going to be happy. If it's below it, then you're going to have to provide a lot more supporting information on why the market value is likely less than the online estimates say it is. Okay. During the appointment, I'm actually going to X out of, I think I'm going to X out of here for a second. And I want to, when we talk about kind of being the expert, I want to provide some context for things that you might review in addition to comparable sales. So, and these are things that you should know. So whatever neighborhood you're in, whatever city you're in, that you're going to be meeting with them, have an idea of what these graphs look like. And when I go into a presentation, I have I ask them a lot of questions, I go through my presentation, and then I segue into the comparable sales. And I've got that on my tablet. And I've also got pulled up on the tablet these graphs because sometimes sellers need a little bit more education about what's going on in the market than others. And so the things that you should know are, you can look at median price, average price. If they're looking at what their neighbor's house sold in April or May, or you're having to go back that far to pull comparable sales, you should know that the last few months have not been as high. And that's critical information when you're helping them to figure out what the market value is on their home. The other thing they need to be aware of is the inventory has gone up. So when we talk about, homes selling super quickly and, it being a really hot seller's market, here's where we were, here's where we are. So we're at a 1.9 month supply. That is still a seller's market, but we are entering a more balanced market, and many experts expect that we will be shifting into a buyer's market. So it's really critical that they get their home priced correctly before this goes up even more. Because if they price it incorrectly and it takes longer to sell, there may be more competition. And at the same time that that competition is shifting, there's also a decrease in demand that's tied to the increase in interest rates. And where we can see that is the number of showings per listing. Now, it was lower, it's slightly higher. Not dramatically, but it does take more showings for each listing before you have an offer. Here's the one graph that I think is the most illustrative, if you will, of the shift in our market. And that is the percentage of original list price. So if people follow the real estate market and their expectation on pricing is based on what was happening in the spring, here's where we were. On average, sellers could list their home and expect to get an average of 105% to 106% of list price. Most recently, we're at 97 to 90, 97.4, 97.5 the last couple months. The reason that we've seen that is because prices, let's get to prices, have done this. So prices came down, but sellers and listing agents many times didn't get the memo. And so what was happening is sales prices were declining, but people were continuing to price their homes as though it was still the same market, and it wasn't the same market. So now we're seeing a little bit of bump up. People are getting a little bit more used to this market, and yet it's still very, very critical to pay attention to what's actually going on. So enough of that. Let me go back to this. Okay, so providing context and educating sellers. Okay, so during the appointment, let me get back to this. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to ask a lot of questions so that you have a good sense of what the seller's motivation is. If they are not very motivated, it may be harder to get them to price the home close to market value. But if they have a some real sense of urgency, we took a new job, we have to be in X by Y, whatever that is, then when you have that pricing discussion, you can tie it back to, is it still important to you that you are able to move to Texas by the end of the year? So you want to really get what their motivation is, where they're going, when they want to be there. The next thing you want is to make sure that they understand that you don't determine the price. You don't set the price. All you're doing is educating them on what's going on with the market, what other homes have sold for recently, what the competition is now, and based on that, what is your recommendation as far as the market value and the best pricing strategy? So sellers and buyers decide the market value. Really buyers more than sellers. The market value is whatever a buyer will pay. You'll give them the knowledge and the information, and then they'll make the decision. Now, if they make a decision that you don't feel you can, where you feel you can meet their expectations, you may decide not to take the listing, especially in this market, because we're going to start to see even more expired listings. And so, you might rather be the second agent if they have very unrealistic expectations. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure to separate the pricing decision from the who to hire decision. So what I will always tell sellers is you have 3 decisions to make. One is, do you want to sell? 2 is, who do you want to hire to represent you, to market your home, negotiate on your behalf, and assist you through the process. So it'll be a smooth transaction for you. And the third decision is, how do you want to price your home? Now, sometimes agents will come in and they'll do what I call bidding for the listing. They will suggest a pie in the sky price to earn your business. That doesn't necessarily mean that your house will sell for that. It just means that they'd like to tell you what you want to hear, so you'll choose them. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to give you my best recommendation, regardless of whether you decide to hire me. And then you might ask them, does that sound fair? Yeah, again, if they're going to go with somebody who's going to tell them something that's unrealistic, awesome, go for it. You want to, again, explain what market value is, which we talked about a little bit. And then you want to use stories and analogies to illustrate how pricing can impact their experience and their bottom line. Now, depending on the neighborhood, I may actually, have a property that I can use to illustrate. We listed a home, for example, in Los Altos, and we put it on, I always tell people, when other people put their homes on the market, they can either help you or they can hurt you, depending on how they price theirs, because they're either going to make your price look great or they're going to make your house look overpriced. And your listing will do the same. So we've had many situations where when we've put a home on the market, we have slightly undercut another listing in terms of pricing that was very similar in terms of condition and location, several times right on the same block. And I have multiple instances where I can say, we list, and where I have pictures, like, we listed this house at this price. And, and in many of those situations, what happened was our listing sold quickly at or above the list price. And that listing that we were competing with, the sellers were forced to lower the price, lower the price, lower the price, and ultimately sell for far less than our listing did when we priced competitively. So would you rather put your home on the market at a higher price and ultimately need to adjust it and sell for less? Or would you rather price competitively at the outset and get the most amount of money that the market will bear? Which one of those strategies sounds more appealing to you? And you want to engage with them. If you're just telling them, it's not going to be as effective as you engaging them in conversation and asking them things along the way. So we have a situation right now where we are falling out of escrow for the third time on a listing. We would not be had we priced effectively from the outset. These are some sellers who have not been in the property for more than 3 years. They halfway moved out and left everything. We sent them pictures and they were sort of appalled by what it looked like. And yet they still felt that it was worth significantly more than what I recommended. I recommended a listing price of $675,000 because we are only appealing to investors. And what I told them was investors are going to want to pay about 65 to 70% of the ARV. And that would be around 675. They wanted 800,000. They settled on a price at 650. We went under contract at 730 with a buyer who tied it up for a while and tried to wholesale it and then realized that that number wasn't going to fly. And a second buyer who did the same at a slightly lower price. And then we just entered at a 675 price, and that buyer's not moving forward either. So I think had we priced at 675, we would probably have already closed escrow and they would have already had their money. But now, because we priced too high, we're going to end up dragging out the process, and ultimately they will get less because they insisted on more. Is that a story that I may pull out in the future? Yes. Not right now while we're in the moment. But yeah, that's the kind of anecdote that is real. And you have to look at what will the market bear. So another thing that I say when I'm in my listing appointment is I tell people our marketing plan has been fine-tuned and tested. So when we put your home on the market, the only thing we're ever testing is the price. And the market will tell us if it will support the price you choose. So those are a few things to kind of keep in mind there. And then you want to talk a little bit before you go into the comparable sales and the graphs I showed you about pricing. And so these are a few slides that are actually in my listing presentation. So factors that impact pricing, and most people know this, but it's not bad to go over it. Location, condition, and competition. And we can't change the location, and we can't change the competition, and the condition usually at that point is what it is. But if you're competing with homes that have remodeled kitchen, central heat and air conditioning, beautifully landscaped yards, and your home doesn't, you have a couple of options. One is to change the condition. Two is to compete based on price. Which of those would you rather do? So again, you have to kind of use those to ask questions. The other thing, and this usually gets a chuckle from sellers, pricing misconceptions, things that don't matter, what you pay, what you need, what you want, what your neighbor says, what another agent says, even what I say, or the cost to rebuild today. And then I go into pricing right, attracting buyers. Market value is whatever a buyer will pay. And as we go up above that, fewer buyers will consider the property. As we go below that, more buyers will consider the property. We only can sell it to one buyer, hopefully, usually. And so we don't necessarily need to go far enough below to attract this many buyers. If you go way, way, way below what the market value is, most buyers will assume there's something significantly wrong with the home, and that could backfire too. So from a pricing strategy standpoint, how you price it will depend not only on location, condition, competition, but also which direction is the market going. And so right now, prices are softening. Depending on who you talk to, we're either going to see declines this next year, or we're going to see like a minuscule increase, or we're going to see it be flat. But nobody thinks we're going wildly up. And so in this type of market, when you look at the range of comparable sales, instead of pricing at the top end of the range, you really should be towards the bottom end of the range. And that's different than what we saw 6 months or a year ago. And the reason, and this you want to go over with them, sometimes sellers will tell you, you know, I'm not in any hurry. Let's just price high because we can always come down. And that is something that if you haven't heard it, you will hear it from somebody at some point. And so you really want to tell them why that initial time period, having it priced correctly, is so important. This is when most offers are received. Even in our current market, the average time to sell a home is less than 30 days. When buyers view a home and it's just come on the market and they like it and they feel it's priced competitively and it compares well with the other homes out there, if buyers are interested, their question is, what do I need to offer to get this home? If it's been on the market 8 weeks, 9 weeks, and buyers view a home, their question isn't, what do I need to offer to get this home? Their question is, how low can I go? And so you really want to have it priced right during that initial time period so that you can attract more offers, better offers, and not have to have it languish. Even if you're not in a hurry, your chance of getting the highest price is during that initial period. So those are some graphs. And if you have any of the listing presentations you've got from anywhere, they probably have those graphs in them. So once I've gone through that, that's then the time when I'm going to go through comparable sales. I will have them actually pulled up on my tablet so I can go through them. And how much time I spend on that is going to depend on whether I have a sense yet of how realistic the seller is. If we already had a pricing conversation, I may not go into it in great detail. I may just go to my little summary graph and say, as you can see, the average for our current competition is here, the average for our recent sales is here, or average price per square foot is there. Based on that, the market seems to be telling us that your home should be priced between X and Y. If you were a buyer and you were going to make an offer on your home, what price do you think you'd offer? And then be quiet and let them answer. Sometimes they will actually just come up with the number that's the right number. And you can say, wow, that's exactly what I think. Should we move forward and get your home listed at that? But sometimes they won't say that. They don't know the script. So you've got to change the script a little bit. And you've got to get into it in a little more depth and actually go through. This home was listed at here. As you can see, they had to make multiple price adjustments before they actually sold it. They sold it well below. That probably had a negative impact on the price. Like, you really want to get into that depth. Or this home is similar to yours, but it has a second bathroom. The kitchen's been more recently updated. It's got this. So when we look at your home, we'll need to adjust for that. So you want to go through that. And here's the thing. You want to know the comparable sales inside and out. What you don't want to do is get to the kitchen table and have them say, what about the home over on such and such street? But this one, that second bathroom was, like all torn apart. Like, if they know the comparable sales better than you do, you're going to have a challenging appointment. So just know that stuff cold. So once you've gone through the comparable sales, you can talk to them about, and if it doesn't seem like you're getting an agreement right away, you can say, so there are really 3 pricing options for you to consider. One is we push the envelope and we go above the market. 2 is we price at what appears to be the fair market value given the data that we're looking at. 3 is we attract the most possible buyers by pricing it a little bit below market value. Of those strategies, which one appeals to you? And they will know. So you could go into a little bit more if they're like, oh, I don't know. So option 1, pros. You might find that perfect buyer who'd be willing to pay more. That'd be great. But what are some cons of that strategy? Fewer showings, more time on the market. Consumers may not even see it if you're priced too far above the competition. Agents may not show it. It may not compare favorably if you're priced too high. If you've got 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, and you are priced in the same range with other homes that are larger and all have a second bathroom, then it's harder for you to be competitive. And taking longer to sell your home ultimately means it would sell for less than it would have otherwise. Option 2 In a market with low inventory, you can still attract lots of attention, but there are still fewer showings than option 3, and it may not sell as quickly. So that's when you really want to know what's important to them. If they want to sell very quickly, then in this market, option 3 may be the best strategy. The pro is that you have the greatest likelihood of creating the maximum interest, particularly in a market where demand is lower anyway. And then again, of the 3 pricing strategies we've discussed, pricing above, slightly below, or at market value, which option would you feel most comfortable moving forward with? So what happens if they want to price it really high? You've gone over all of the market data, you've gone over all of the comps, and they say, yes, but we want this price. Well, what you can do is see if they'll agree to a pre-timed, preset price adjustment so you don't have to tackle that later. So let's say that you go through all this, the market value seems to indicate that the home is worth $1 million. And they say, but I'd like to price it at $1.05 million because maybe the right buyer will come along. All right, how about we do this? We price it at $1.05 million. We will do all of our marketing, expose your home as broadly as possible to all of the buyers out there looking, because again, we know that when we put your home on the market, our marketing's already been tested and proven. The only thing we're testing is price. So if the market rejects that price, we want to make an adjustment as soon as possible so that you don't miss out on that initial exposure period. So how about this? We listed at $1.05 million, and we agree that if we don't have any offers on the table at 14 days in, we adjust the price to $1 million. How does that sound? Now, hopefully they'll just agree to it. And then if you feel that you can still attract interest at that $1 million after 2 weeks, go for it. Take the listing at that. Would you take it if they don't agree to that? Well, that's a gut decision. You have to just make that decision at that point. But here's the deal. You'll have already planted the seeds that you don't necessarily think that's the right price. And you'll have already started the conversation about pricing up front. And so what happens if you do take the listing and now the house doesn't sell? The market rejects the price. So a few things to keep in mind. One is don't wait to have a conversation about price. A lot of people just don't want to have that conversation, but give the seller feedback immediately and often. Document everything you're doing along the way so you don't have to justify it during pricing conversations later. You don't want it to be later where you're like, well, we did this and we did this and we did that. No, let them know up front. Here's what we did. We did this today. We did this week. Here's all the places your home is appearing. Here's the number of people who have viewed it. Here's how many agents viewed it. Here's the feedback we had from agents. Here's the feedback we had from buyers. We had this many people through the open house. Here's what they had to say. So make sure that you're giving them that information. And if there's any feedback from agents or buyers that the price is not appropriate, let them know that up front. And share with them any feedback that isn't directly that the price is too high, but could be an indication. So my client really loved the house, but they found a house that was much bigger and had been remodeled at the same price. Okay, that's actually pricing feedback. So make sure that you share that with them. Continue to provide them with market data and information about competition, what's selling, what hasn't selling, what's gone under contract in their neighborhood in the last week, what else came up, how is that impacting their ability to attract buyers. Provide them with as many visual tools as you can charts, graphs, the actual feedback, not you saying, well, we had a couple agents say it was overpriced. No, Joe Schmo from, ABC Realty showed, and he said, quote, end quote. Put yourself on the same side as them so that it doesn't feel adversarial. The market, you may have given them a recommendation on price up front, but now you're in it with them. So the market is telling us that, or unfortunately, the market has rejected the price we set the home at. So now you're on the same side. Be direct and be honest. Give them options. So something like, given the feedback, I'm recommending we adjust the price. What would you be comfortable with at this time? 5% or 7%? Or would you prefer a larger adjustment now so we don't have to make another adjustment later? And then let them think about it. I find that a lot of times, if we have sellers who need educating about price, it is helpful to send them some information in a very comprehensive email that has the charts and the graphs and what we've done so far and the feedback that we've had so far, and then said, I'd like to schedule a time to discuss pricing and next steps. And then set that time. A lot of times you won't even have to have the conversation because they will tell you, we reviewed it and we think we need to adjust the price to X. Awesome. You did your job. You don't even have to have the conversation. So that's sometimes the best conversation. And that's it. That's my whole presentation. I guess I don't really have an hour. So any questions? Nobody.
Hey, it was very good, Shannon.
Okay, well, we have no questions, huh?
Shannon, this is Susie from Keller Williams, Calabasas. I want to thank you. Hi, I want to thank you because you were amazingly thorough and I just took a lot of notes and a lot of screenshots. So I think this is really good. I never thought it was supposed to be this, like, I guess, worded out or detailed. I mean, we normally jump on so many of those topics, but that makes me double think that I should slow down on a lot of those points coming to a listing appointment and just, earning their trust.
Yeah, the more information that you provide them, the more they will see you as an expert. And and the more they see you as an expert, the more they will listen to you. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes it's fabulous. Sometimes what sellers want is what the market value is. And we get to go out and we get to tell them, hey, that's great. Yeah, that's the price for your home. And you get to list it and it will sell for that. And that's wonderful. That's fabulous. But you know what? We're entering a market where that may not always happen. And honestly, for several years, the sellers have gotten kind of spoiled because they could sort of name their price and the market would say, yeah, sure. Buyers are clamoring over themselves to make offers at, the list price and 20, 30, 40, $100,000 above. I mean, we had clients who offered, I think, 85,000 above the list price with, no contingencies and didn't get it. But we're not in that market now. And so this is the kind of market where people who know their stuff are going to set themselves apart from people who don't.
Right.
So know your stuff.
And I wanted to also just bring out the situation that I have with my listing at the moment. And so it was at $765. We brought it down to $695. I mean, it was supposed to be priced at $695 at the beginning, as you said. I just priced it a little higher. And she was really open. As you said, they just ask you and they just say what's best. So based on the comps, it was in the 700s, and even Redfin put in the 800s. So I just said, let's just do it in the middle. So I just priced it at 765, and then we brought it down after like 3 weeks to 695. And so my question is, and my comment is that my seller was like, okay, Susie, I don't mind. And she follows the market. So she was right away okay with a 700 offer. She accepted it. So now I'm getting a lot of investors sending me emails in the 500s. And I don't even want to tell my seller. I mean, I know what we're supposed to, but I don't even tell her because she's going to take it off the market.
So here's the deal. You don't really have an option. If you receive an offer, regardless of how ridiculous it is, you still have an obligation to present it to the seller, even if it's ridiculous. You can preface it by saying, sometimes when we adjust the price, we do see investors come out of the woodwork and they offer, prices that are ridiculous. You do not need to do anything with this, but I am obligated to forward it to you. Here it is.
Actually, I did say that in the conversation. Sorry, I just have to back up to myself. And I said that's my conversation a few times on the phone. I said, by the way, I got the 700 offer, and I had before a few offers from investors that were really low in the 500s. And she's like, oh no, we don't want to go that low. So I did tell her.
Yeah. So we just forward everything, and then when we get offers that are just ridiculous, I will just say received. Will you need us to initial the rejection section?
I love that. Yeah, sure.
So and then we send it along, and there you go. If they want that section initialed, then great, we'll get it initialed, and if not, then oh well. So
if we don't respond in 3 days, that's already not accepted, right?
I'm not here to teach you contracts.
No, I know. I'm just saying in general.
Yeah. My feeling is that it's always best to respond anyways, even if it's a negative response, because you don't know when you're going to hear back from, encounter one of these people.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I'm just looking to see. No other questions.
Hey, Shannon, it's Janet Darrow. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Great. It was a good presentation. I appreciate it. I wanted to ask you two little things. In pricing, $799 as opposed to $800. Do you have any thoughts on that? The other thing is comps versus your competition on the market. Which do you put more weight in fixing a price?
Yeah, those are both really great questions. I see a lot of people pricing at that, 799,000. I mean, let's be honest, it's 800,000, right? Like, you're not fooling anybody. It's not a used car lot, right? My feeling personally is that I would rather price at 800,000 than at 799,000, or especially than 799,999. That is my absolute pet peeve. But I really would rather price at 800,000. And the reason is because buyers use online portals to search. And the online portals search windows, if you will, are usually set at round numbers. And so if you price it at 799,000, you'll attract all the people who are looking up to that number, but you won't necessarily attract the people who are looking above 800,000. So if somebody's looking from 800,000 to 850,000, would they maybe want to know about a house that was listed for 799,999? Yeah, maybe. But guess what? It's not going to probably show up on their radar screen because they've segmented it and eliminated some of the people who might actually pay more.
Yeah, I was told that Zillow does kind of up to numbers, and that's why the 99s were.
Sometimes, but people use other portals besides that to search. So, so my feeling is, if you're going to try and game the system to pick up everything.
Right.
The next question was which to weight more. probably it's going to depend on which you have more of. Now, I've run comparable sales sometimes on properties where, wow, there's a ton of active competition and not many recent solds. Well, that tells us something. That tells us that demand is pretty low, and now we're competing with a lot of buyers. So we're going to need to factor in, where do we need to be to compete with those other listings? So that's going to be important. But also, what about pendings? So what listing prices have recently caused similar homes to go under contract? That's a big clue, because those were people who chose recently successful strategies. And so you definitely want to factor that in. However, obviously the solds are important too, because you've got to still justify the price, the contract price, to an appraiser. And an appraiser is going to want to look at all of those. But it really will depend on the house, the price range, and what comps you've got to work with.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. I think we're done then, yeah?
Shannon, one more question. If
Okay.
you're representing the buyer, and she just saw a property that's really just got on the market yesterday, and it's tear down, it's a flip, but it's priced at 1.399 because it's large. I mean, in this market, what would you advise your buyer as far as an offer price?
Without having more information, I really can't tell you. I mean, it would depend on what her plans were for the property, what the ARV was for the property, whether she could write an offer and have it considered and responded to right away, or if the listing agent and seller had a strategy where they were going to wait a certain amount of time before responding. What's the condition of the property? I mean, what are the other terms of the offer? Is she going to have financing when she might be competing against other people who were cash? Like, there's so many other variables with that I can't really tell you what price would be a good offer.
Right. I did suggest for her to bring her contractor along at a showing, so the contractor will price, the renovation cost. And so, yeah, of course, I'm gonna do my comparables to see what will be in that range for that price. So give her an idea. I'm just saying, from my perspective, how would I look really professional, and I had done my homework, and had kind of assisted her, my fiduciary right, in a way.
Yeah, just do your homework and make sure
Yeah.
she has all the information that you have.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I think that's it, right?
All good.
Okay, because you know how much I love talking in public, not.
Thank you so much. This was amazing.
Thank you,
Okay.
Shannon.
Bye.
Thank you. Stop
Thank you,
recording now.
Shannon. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, bye.